Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, FF family. Welcome to the Freedom Finances Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan, along with Bradley and Nick, who could not survive without me. Let's be honest, last week was terrible, awful. No one watched it. Just kidding. You guys did great. I missed you guys. How'd you feel like last week went, guys? How'd you feel?
Oh, it went just fine. I mean, the thing you just said about surviving without you, I'm going to start thinking about that.
Okay, well, I'm
peaceful.
glad you guys... Oh, peaceful, great, awesome, yeah. Well, sorry I was gone, family visits, you know how it is, but I appreciate you guys holding down the fort. I thought the video also went well, so good job, you guys. You did great. Just that one time without me, but after that, it's probably going to be bad, let's be honest. So, for everyone who doesn't know, today is April 25th. This is episode 21 where we get started. With this on here for today, what we're going to go over is, of course, some topics in the economy. Overall, we're going to talk about the stock market update, personal finance, FAQs as well. And as anyone doesn't know, we have the stock market draft that we've been doing called the investment draft. We're going to go over that first. So let's start off with that. I like that idea. So stock market's been up and down. It has not changed yet. But overall, it's been good, I would say. What do you guys think? I think by the time this update happened when we're recording, it went well, but then didn't. What's happened so far?
Stock market's had a good couple weeks, especially this week, I should say. Last week was down a little. So it's looking better ever since Liberation Day, whatever it was called.
Hell yeah. America 2 Day. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. So where updates are, here we go. All right, so I'll start with Nick. Nick, you've been having a rough couple runs, and today's no different. So Nick, you are currently, if anyone doesn't needs a reminder, so we start with $100,000. These two gents invested that, air quotes, invested that into the economies with the stock market. Currently, right now, Nick is sitting at $90,904.43 at a negative. Almost 10% change. Oof. Okay.
Last week he was over negative 12%, so it's an improvement.
We're only going up from here. So, Nick, currently right now, as it stands, your winners, if I'm not mistaken, is actually Netflix. Netflix up almost 7%, and your biggest loser, Starbucks, at minus 35% almost. 34.88. What is going on with Starbucks? Let's start there.
I think Starbucks actually got better, right? Wasn't I down like 45% on that?
Was that last week? Oh my God!
I think it got a little bit better.
Yeah, I think it's moving in the right direction, actually. No, I think this last week actually, T-Mobile might have been my biggest weekly loser. They reported earnings yesterday, and they missed subscriber count additions by like 10,000 lines. And I think if you look at like Verizon and AT&T price to earning ratio for the industry is like 9 and 12, and T-Mobile is like 28 or something like that. So I think this may have been the first time that T-Mobile's kind of slowed down a little bit, and I think the market like hammered them for it. So I think I would be in a much better spot had T-Mobile met those expectations, but I think that's actually the biggest contributing factor to my losses this week is the like 12% drop that T-Mobile saw overnight.
Yeah, I mean, it was positive, and now it's down almost 10% since we started.
Yeah, so as of recording, I believe it's at around 230, 232.
Yeah.
So based on where if I'm looking at this correctly, based on where you got it was at 255, so it has almost a 10% drop by itself.
And you were making money on it before.
Yeah, it was one of my winners. It was up to 262, I think, before they reported earnings after the bell yesterday. So, not looking good for me. But I still think they'll come back in the long term.
Yeah.
I'm going to do an ad lib here. I'm just kind of thinking on this, and I sincerely don't know. So either one of you chime in on this. So why would a company, so think of stocks, stock price. If a company like T-Mobile here, revenue went up. They didn't surpass what they thought they were doing, right? I'm not mistaken on that. If I'm not mistaken, okay. And their subscriber count didn't meet what they were looking. So why would the stock drop off of that? Is that like a tech company stock thing? Can that be like equated to maybe even a Walmart, like another like a retailer? What's the idea behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give my thoughts and I'll let Bradley kind of share his. But I think, when you look at, and I'd love to make a comparison of it, but like with T-Mobile, I think everybody's like, oh my God, they keep growing and growing. They're never going to stop. And like, if you have this asset that has been just known to continue to surpass everything, right? They just keep breaking records. They keep surpassing all estimates. And it doesn't look like there's any end in sight. You're willing to pay a premium for that asset, and I think for T-Mobile, when I talk price to earnings ratio, they're so much more expensive for every dollar that they make compared to similar companies because people keep expecting them to grow and grow. Well, as soon as you have anything that says like, ooh, maybe that's not going to just keep happening forever, then that value goes back down to what it really should be. And I think that's where you see these big drops. So it's not that they're like, oh my gosh, T-Mobile is not making as much money, but the amount that investors are willing to pay for that money that they're making is going to go back down to about what the industry average is, I would expect. So I think that's kind of what you're seeing there. Bradley, any alternative thoughts?
No, actually, I 100% agree, and I'd like to give an analogy. So, for anyone who likes baseball, there's a player named Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani signed a couple years ago with the Dodgers for $700 million. If you're thinking, wow, that's a lot of money. Well, yes, it is a lot of money. Biggest
Yes.
contract in sports history until last year. But he was amazing because he could pitch and he could hit. And the last person who could really do that well was Babe Ruth 100 years ago. So Shohei Ohtani, amazing, won 3 MVPs already. This year, he's doing good, like very good. But he's not elite. He's not amazing. He's not like the best hitter ever. So people are like looking at Shohei Ohtani and saying, oh, he's a good player. And they completely forget how good he is, what he brings to the game. T-Mobile is kind of like that. Like they've been so good. They continue to grow. And once I feel like what you said, Nick, was right. Once people are like, maybe they are just a regular company, maybe some of that magic is wearing off. The prices are eventually going to slow down.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
By the way, another side note, those Dodgers this year, holy cow, really good, right?
Yes, but they're on a little. They start off really hot. They won the first 7 games. They're a little slow right now, but I still think they'll probably win the World Series. They pretty much have the best roster assembled in baseball history. But
I'm not kidding. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. They're having a hell of a year. Anyway, Bradley, back to you. So, same thing. Had $100,000 to put into the stock market. You're currently sitting at $95,247.74. You are down 4.75%. So, looking a little bit better. Currently, your biggest winners you have are the Berkshire Fund once again, up 12.5%. Your biggest loser is Meta tech stock. Down 24.55%. So why is it winning? Why is it losing? What's going on?
So I was thinking about this when we were talking about when we were getting ready to talk about this today. I'm like, what the heck is up with Berkshire? Because the stock market went down and Berkshire's like, I'll go up a little bit. And then it just kept going up and up and up. But if you look at some of their holdings, some of their major holdings are in Bank of America, Coca-Cola, Kraft, Apple, American Express, Kroger. A lot of these holdings in the fund weren't the major tech stocks that Nick and I picked that were relatively volatile, that plummeted last month. So Berkshire kind of had a relatively safe, and probably its earning potential in the long run might be a little bit less. But it's lower risk and potentially lower reward, but right now the risk level is high. So all the reward is really low. And I think Berkshire is like, yeah, we don't have a lot of risk, so you don't have to worry about it. A lot of those holdings have had a good couple months as the other top stock. So Berkshire Hathaway Fund B looking good. Meta not looking great. It looks like they're struggling with some of their AI stuff with their AI chips. We'll see where they're going, but they've really continued to slide. Even when places like Tesla or Nvidia have started to come back up, Meta hasn't. But they have a quarterly earnings report next week, so we'll see how it goes from there.
Yeah, I was looking actually at Tesla because I was interested because it seems as though Elon's stepping away from the government position a little bit, which I
Yeah.
was expecting because didn't he have like that kind of position unelected is like 100 days or something like that anyway? Like he was going to step away regardless. Regardless of that, like I've noticed that since that announcement, Tesla stock's gone up. It
Yeah,
seems
we're
not
gonna
mixing
talk
has
about
been good.
Tesla a little bit more. But yeah, there's a lot going on with Tesla.
Absolutely. All right. So before we get started today, as always, I like to talk about something positive going into each other's lives. Let's start that off before we get into this. So I'll start this time since I was gone last week. Got a little bit of a new setup, got a new mic, got a new setup for like the podcast, trying to invest a little into that. It's been fun. The other thing, I got like a little bit of part two, the Oblivion remake. I couldn't help myself. Oh my God, it's so good. I
Is it?
have. Yes, it is. So, fun fact for me, that was the first game I ever got all the achievements on the 360 and my first 360 game I've ever played. And I saw a funny thing. It was like, guy was playing the Oblivion remake. He goes, "Hey, for the person that let me borrow the original Oblivion, you can have it back now, like 15 years later." So that was fun. So I'm playing it right now. It's great. I have one complaint I have is when you walk out of the sewer, you immediately notice that the world feels, I don't know if it's like a fleshed out or like a weird brownish purple tint over everything. It's how they like introduced a realism factor like they did with Skyrim. And the problem is, in just my humble opinion, Oblivion is very colorful palette. A lot of greens, a lot of blues, and you experience that in a town called Chine Hall. Shane Hall. It's been a minute since I've known how to pronounce these names, but Chine Hall, I think, where it's all those greens, but it's like when you go back to the Imperial place, it's just back to the browns and purples. It's trying to be some weird realism thing. My only complaint. Other than that, gameplay's great. I've enjoyed that they kept like bugs that they've had back in like '07 into this too. It's been really cool. It's very nostalgic. I'm enjoying a lot of it. I've already got like 5 hours into it. It's awesome.
Nice.
Bradley, what do you got?
I got my parents visiting today. They're just visiting a little bit before my surgery for next week. They just want to say hi. So, yeah, hanging out with them.
We'll never see him again. Nick, what do you got?
So recently started to eat a little healthier and stepped on the scale today. I'm down 20 pounds. So
Dang.
kind of excited about that.
Nice.
Wow. So just overnight, just took out Wheaties and that's all you've been doing, huh?
Yep. I just, last night I weighed. This morning I'm down 20 pounds. That's all it took.
Any health tips you got for people?
It's actually super simple. Just counting calories. I got a little app that I punch my food into, and it gives me calories for the day. And if you eat that much, you'll lose weight apparently. So,
did you use what's called Lose It?
That is the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
It's a good one. I've been
That's
using
funny.
that for mine, like since started boxing and stuff. So that's the one I use. It's good.
Nice.
All right.
I like it.
All right, let's get started today, gentlemen. So back to the topic of today, which is the stock market update and some personal finance FAQs to get started this week. So, Nick, since I have your attention here, we alluded to the stock market being up. So stocks have been rising. Quarterly reports are out. Should there be some optimism either with the stock market, the economy? What do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're starting to see some of that, the good coming from some of that. A lot of these stocks have been, starting to go back up. I think you can argue that a lot of it has to do with the tariffs being rolled back. But I think that, companies are starting to report some earnings and it's starting to look good. So yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic. I think there are going to be some industries that, maybe get hit that are kind of unexpected. But I think overall, I mean, fingers crossed, the worst is behind us. I mean, I'm invested in the market. I don't want it to go down, but yeah, I'm thinking we've got some good news ahead of us because we're definitely overdue. Is my opinion.
Yeah. I'll also add to that. I did take the advice of the podcast. I invested back during the beginning of the month when the tariffs were like hitting hard. Everyone was like panicking about it. I did invest and I got a good rebound on the like for what I sold in. Now, I kept my budget that I do monthly for my investment. I kept the
Good.
same, just invested how much I could,
Good.
and I kept it automatic what had happened. So whether it's good or bad, I invest. And currently, right now, like they went up. I think I look over, it's like a 4 to 5% increase from where that was, is what I last checked. I haven't checked with today with the influx, but it was yesterday I checked overall. Like I got a good bump from it.
Yeah.
It was right. We were right. Invest when it's lower.
Yeah. I mean that is pretty. It's pretty as simple as that. I mean, I I, I don't know if there's like any accountability for those people who like told us to like run around with our heads on fire because the stock market is crashing and we're all gonna die.
Mhm.
Especially when the outlier data of the economy is that the economy's pretty strong. We're still in a recovering job market, but the inflation is down. Technically, now that the stock market was down, like that brings inflation down even more. But like prices for goods were down and jobs were good, mortgages were good. So yeah, it's looking good. The stock market isn't everything. And I think, like, I've been thinking about what we talked about last week with Nick and I for those who are older and put a lot of their savings in the stock market. At this point, I think you really got to focus on lower risk assets for your 401k or IRA, whether it's like CDs, bonds, making sure your rent's paid off, where something like the stock market doesn't kill you. But if it does, you don't have to do anything because it's going to recover on its own.
Yep.
Mhm.
Something with it too, I find it's weird because I feel like take politics out of it, for example, and you would have like had the same thing. I feel like with the previous administration at this point,
Sure,
it feels
yeah.
like I feel like I mean, sure, the tariffs might have been different, of course, and you see like the jump back and forth, of course, but realistically, the economy was in a recovering state regardless. It was either going to go steady or up. I felt like we just would have been in the same path anyway. Like eggs would have came down regardless. There's not
Yeah.
a panic mode.
Yeah.
But anyway, Bradley, since I got your attention, so Tesla's stock. We're going to talk about that now. You alluded to that earlier. Their stock is way up after earnings, but net income was down this quarter. You said that profit drives the price of the stock. So, but why are prices up with lower profits?
Yeah, so I feel like I needed to be held to some accountability for what I said. Like profits will always drive stock prices, right? Like if they're down, it's down. If it's up, it's up. So I like when the Tesla stock or Tesla's quarterly earnings came out, everything like was plastered all over the news. Like income is down, profits are down. I'm like, oh boy, they're gonna have a rough day. And it happened after market, I think, or at the end of the day, and after market trading was up. So I'm like, I need to figure out what's going on, like with their quarterly earnings report. So I pulled it up. I actually pulled up like the shareholder deck, and yeah, income was down, profits were down, sales were down. Operational cash flow is up, which means they can pay their bills. They have more cash on hand. I'm like, okay, I wonder how much of an operating or how much operating cash flow impacts everything. It's a good thing, but it is a sign for long-term health of the company. But I really think what we're looking at is probably the state of the future of Tesla. Not the state of Tesla, but the future of Tesla. Elon Musk, like you talked about this a little bit, Dylan. Elon Musk is probably going to spend more time with Tesla.
Yeah.
Whatever you think about Elon Musk and Doge, it doesn't matter because he's running a company. And so I think investors, shareholders are like, come back, right? You're the one who brought us billions in profits. We need you back. And we could kind of see that, like, hey, he's gone and profits and sales go down. So we need that mind, is kind of the mentality of it. But I think, like, with when it comes to leadership, is like Elon Musk, like, shareholders and the board have been extremely happy with his performance. I don't know, like 5 years ago when they gave him like that $700
Oh yeah.
million paycheck in stocks for his performance. They like Elon Musk. So I think he's a very important mind in the company. Whatever you think about him politically, he brings in profits. The future of Tesla potentially is strong. They've made some changes with full self-driving, giving discounts or transfers for old cars to new cars. So I think the future of Tesla is strong, and they've even talked about like more and more having discounted cars. that are made in America or are made like heavily produced in America. So I think like overall the outlook is very strong for the company, while at the same time profits aren't strong. I think a better measure is probably a year, but even at a quarter of poor sales, we're like, what's going on? Let's buy it. And everyone bought it and the price went up.
Yeah, I think almost to allude to your initial like self-reflection, it's almost like T-Mobile is another example of that, the profits went up for the stocks, right? But their stock went down. So it's sort of like that. We know revenue went up, but their subscribers didn't, and thus the
Right,
stock
yeah.
didn't rise as intended. So I think bottom line is you can generally follow that rule. There's just we found that there are exceptions to the rule, right?
Yeah, and I think it's like profits and profits tomorrow. Profits today and profits tomorrow. Like what are
Yeah.
profits going to be like in the future? Will it keep sustaining us? And I think for Tesla, the answer is yes.
Yep. Can concur. All right, so this is going to be for the both of you, so anyone can chime in on this. So we're going to go to some switch from the state of the economy to some finance FAQs we got today. Not a lot going on with the economy in general besides just what we talked about. So we're going to move on to this. Now, I'm going to present a question to you all, and then you all can chime in. Go for it. So, first question. My car is old, and I have to take it to the shop a lot. I hate this car. Why shouldn't I get a new car?
Nick, you go.
Um,
I want to hear what you have to say.
yeah, so it's funny. I think there's a lot of people that think different ways about this because we used to kind of think the same way of like, hey, if I'm paying the same in repairs as I would a monthly payment for a new car, um,
Oh.
And he's gone.
Nick, Nick, Nick. Nick, Nick, Nick. It's like
Maybe you should get on Wi-Fi, brother.
this is actually why T-Mobile is down is because their internet is junk. Yeah.
Lamb.
Okay. Sorry, fellas.
You're good.
All right. So new car or not, right? Yeah, I think the argument is if I'm going to be paying, a bill to get it repaired, is it about the same as a monthly payment on a new car that doesn't require, maintenance and things like that? Here's what I say. I don't think there's just a easy answer of like do this or do that. I think you've got to kind of factor it in. What's the age of the car? What's the expected life on it? What's your average maintenance costs? With a new car, you have to think about, new interest rates as well. So if your car is either paid off or you're, locked in a long time ago at a lower interest rate, you got to factor that in. You got to factor in the cost of insurance. I don't think people do that a lot, but newer cars are usually more expensive to insure with the higher value and things like that. You got to think about what's your gas mileage. There's just a lot of things to consider. I don't know that purchasing a brand new car makes a ton of financial sense. I think if you're going to get a newer car, maybe get one that's, had a majority of its depreciation already consumed by somebody else, maybe a year or two old, it's got a couple miles on it. I think you get better value that way.
Yeah.
But I think it just depends on your situation. It's not a bad idea. I think you just got to weigh the pros and cons. I don't think it's always just yes, get a new car or no, just have the old one. I think it just depends on what are the types of repairs that you're doing, and if you've sunk thousands of dollars into a car with all new parts, it's probably going to last a little while. Maybe that's not the time to go and buy a new car
Yeah.
either. So you got to take that into consideration too.
Yeah, I think like how much are you spending to repair your car? And I probably all three of us, I know I have been in this situation where I'm like always repairing my car. I'm like, I'm just gonna get another car. And like the car I had at the time, we did get another car. It wasn't new, it was used. I want to say like somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000. And it lasted a good amount of time until I could afford like a new car like a car that I needed specifically for my lifestyle. But I mean, I think what what everyone has to avoid is like the cycle of continuing to go through cars, especially newer, expensive cars. That's where you really get hurt. If you're cycling through cheaper cars every few years that are a few $1,000s, like you can handle it, but it's the new cars and the new payments and the interest payments. Like some people upgrade their car every 4 years, sometimes sooner, but they get a new car and it's usually a little bit more than it was before. And each time it goes up a little bit. And as long as you're not cycling through that process, if you've found yourself buying a new car every couple of years, it might be a you problem and not a car problem.
On a real note, first of all, I agree. Um, on the real note, though, so I've had my car since I think 2017, 2018. It's reliable four door. It's very consistent with what it is, and I have basically a yearly payment where I have at least probably like $500 to $1,000 I need to put into like a repair of some sort
Yeah.
that is being goofy, you know, and that is the balance I have. I sincerely wonder sometimes, like, okay, how many more of these do I have to do until I do a trade in? Because I
Right.
think you really want to do a trade in when your car's not in a heap of problems, right? Like you want to find that sweet spot before it gets there, but I find myself to like on a average Joe kind of thinking is if my car is generally doing this, I'm gonna find out how much would a monthly cost do, and if my yearly payment to fix my car is gonna exceed that in some way, I'm probably gonna start turning it in. That's where I'm
Here's
at
the thing. What'd you say you put into your car? Like 500 to 1,000 every year?
every year. Yes.
The average car payment is around $600 per month. So $1,000, you just can't beat that, you know?
Okay, I crossed the 3 and I dotted the T, and that math does add up to what my thought is. So I I agree. I mean, it just makes sense. Yes, am I like want to kick my car every January when I go, or you know, whenever it is I do that? Yes, absolutely. I feel like every year, at least a portion of my tax refund goes to my car. But then I think, do I risk the challenge with a different car? Or,
Yeah.
you know, because who knows what that is? Maybe that's a yearly one over there too, but it's now it's $600 to $1,200 at the pay every year,
Yeah.
you know?
And here's the thing to think about too, man, is on your current car, like how much are you losing in value on it every year? You go and get a new car or even a slightly used car, you're going to lose $500 to $1,000 in depreciation every year. So
Yeah.
you might not be paying it in repairs, but you're still losing that same money. So it's, you still got to consider those costs, but $1,000 a year in repairs might not be that bad compared to the overall cost of a new car, you know?
I absolutely agree with that. That's just my mentality. It's like once it reaches that though, that's time to think. But it gets me to point A to point B. And you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I'm not really looking into street racing anytime soon, so I'm okay. All right. Next question. Does anyone have anything else on the car?
No.
Just to make sure. Okay, cool.
Oh,
So, I just turned 18. I'm fresh out of mom and pop's house. I'm in college. I want to build up my credit score now. What am I doing?
Oh, so I'm actually in this situation. I just
You're
had
not
Allie
18.
turned 18 in March. I'm
Oh, okay.
I'm not 18, no. But my daughter just turned 18. And yeah, she's kind of asking those questions, right? Should I get a credit card? Like, what do I go and do? If I get a credit card, how do I use it? So yeah, I think if we had to have a talk with her as far as what plans for, is it just to build
Yeah.
credit, like things like that. I think, it depends on how you were raised and everything. I'm kind of more conservative in this aspect, but I think, if you go and get a prepaid credit card, basically, which is you put, $500 down, and that's your limit. Basically, it reports to credit agencies just like a regular credit card does. You find one that reports to all three agencies. You fill up your gas tank once a month, and you pay it off at the end of the month. Maybe become a co-person on your parents' credit card, because that'll help build your credit as well. I think those are all good first steps to kind of start building that credit, so that when you do need your first car loan, or you go to apply for a mortgage, you've got kind of a baseline But I don't think you really should be doing a whole lot more than that as an 18-year-old, just because, you don't have that same structure, and, you might find yourself not as financially disciplined,
Yeah.
and getting in some trouble when you spend $1,000, you get that first bill and it's like, hey, you could pay $1,000, or how about 50? You're like, 50 sounds a lot better. So those would be my recommendations, just to balance the financial discipline with actually trying to, improve an 18-year-old credit score.
Yeah. I think I agree. I like in a situation where like you have your 18-year-old in your household, like that's a great opportunity to like okay, you're still in the house. I'm going to give you whatever however long you're staying here. We're going to work on credit and understand credit together until you're off to college or whatever. Hopefully you're working on it before you're 18, but once you get to that point, it's like, okay, let's do the starter credit card from Bank of America or whatever and see how it goes. But like I think like there's this book, The Total Money Makeover from Dave Ramsey, and that is not what we are at Freedom Finances, but it's a different idea, which is like you don't ever need credit cards, never zero, right? In his plan. And his plan is you never have debt, so therefore you never need credit cards. So it's like, okay, that's cool. But you have to never have debt and you have to start off in a perfect situation. But I think like if you start off, you kind of start off with like little to no credit. Something like that, like starter credit card is good, but like a couple mistakes really brings your credit down. The most important thing to do is simply just to pay all your bills on time and pay as much of it off as soon as possible. If you do that, like let's say you're 19, you get a credit card and you accidentally max it out at to $1,000. Your number one financial priority should be to pay off that $1,000 and hopefully never use that again. And as you just move along, your credit score will just naturally go up from having a $0 balance, never missing a payment. And by the time you need that credit score, it's going to be there just because you have a really, really low balance or no balance and you have perfect payments. So that's my idea. It's just like pay something off and you're good. Like have very low payments, pay it off ASAP. It's as simple as that. I mean, if you're stuck in a bad position where you have a low credit score, you kind of have to dig yourself out of debt, but your priority is pay everything on time, pay as much off as possible.
I also recommend with that is some sort of like credit check wouldn't be bad. Not that you need to check it every single day, but
Sure.
something that I did really well something that I did I felt was really well for what I built credit for was like having Credit Karma.
Yeah.
Just because it did like signal like, hey, you're going up. And it gave some recommendations as to why. Same if you went down, here's why.
Yeah.
And it's just what you mentioned, Bradley. It was just I sometimes I put more money on my credit card to make a payment towards it later. And then once at the end of the month when my auto pay took off, it was done. Like it
Yep.
went back up 30 points. Like
Yeah.
it's funny. Now
I would even say that each credit agency allows you to do a free report once a year. It doesn't give you a score, but it will give you itemized things. When I turned 18, I actually had some things on my credit from like when I was 13 years old that I was able to dispute through requesting that. I was like, I was 13. I didn't do that. And so, Credit Karma, I've never used it personally, but if you go to the individual credit agencies, you can do once a year for free. They'll send you a little packet with anything that's been reported on your credit, good or bad. So
Yeah.
I do believe there's like another form of very popular one now. I think Rocket Money does that too now. It's like they'll check like your credit to see what's going on because they're doing like the budget thing where they're like, hey, if there's something happening, we can cancel it on your card or whatever. I believe they'll do it too.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on to this, Bradley, you brought up something that I never even thought of before. You said you can work on your credit before you're 18. I thought you needed to have credit when you're 18. So what's a good way of working on it when I'm 13, for example?
So are you talking about like with parents?
Yeah,
like-
sure. Anyway, like
Yeah.
how do I start building credit when I'm a teenager?
Yeah, I think what you need to do is like to really understand debt and credit, like first just like teach what it means. I mean, if you think about it from like the world, I'm going to try not to go off too much, but like if you think about the world and like the government
Pace yourself.
and, like when the United States started, like we had no credit, right? So we have to
Right.
borrow money and pay it back, et cetera, et cetera. That like at one point everyone had to borrow money and pay it back, including every country. So I think that could be a process where if you have kids, like have them borrow some money and have them pay it back and charge them really high interest and maybe tell them like it sucks, doesn't it? Like if you didn't have to borrow that money, then you wouldn't have to pay back more than you borrowed. So I think that could be a process that we could teach our kids young, once they start becoming a teenager. Like maybe if you give your kids allowance, like have them like cut it in half and have them borrow the other 10, the other 50%, see what it looks like, and then maybe they'll say I don't want to borrow that allowance, I just want what I have, because it costs me more money in the end. So I think building up your kids early and teaching them about credit and how to be responsible with their money is how we can start getting our kids to understand right away what a credit score is, what it means, how it impacts your life.
So real world application is
Yeah,
what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Got it. That makes sense. Thanks.
And
Nick,
real world application, and if you're like me, maybe, give them a little history lesson on credit scores.
yeah, let's just worry about the application. Anyway,
Okay,
Nick,
okay, got
Nick, I'm gonna throw this one to you. So there have been discussions that the government is going to start enforcing payments on student loans. As somebody, well, I mean, you two, I don't have student loans either, correct? Because you got it through your job.
Not anymore. Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Okay,
Used to.
great.
No longer.
Well, slight shout out, as always, with here at Freedom Finances, we recommend that always check your employee services that they give you, because you could get some benefits like having your tuition paid for, which both
Yep.
of these suckers did. So it was good. They got the degrees from it. So it's just another example, like we always talk about, of utilizing your employer. So, sorry, back to this. So let's say I have student loans, Nick. So the government's going to start enforcing the payments on the student loans. What should I do?
Yeah, so keep me honest. So the student loans were deferred. Was interest deferred as well, or has that been being charged this entire time?
Interest was deferred for a short time during COVID, but
Yep.
but that was like a emergency act. It had
Okay.
They put it back on.
Okay, so that's I think if you're in a scenario where you haven't been paying your student loans ever since they said that you didn't have to because you thought that they were going to be like wiped away, I think one, you were probably a little naive. But two, it's the same thing as making the minimum payments on your credit card. Like, wow, what was wrong with you? Like, what are you doing? Now, if interest was deferred, I get it. It's a free loan that you like pay it back when they start charging you interest. Like, I understand that, but if you haven't been paying it back this whole time, I just say shame on you. You know what I mean? Like, you should have been paying that, because now you're getting charged all this interest, and now you find yourself in a situation where you're having to pay all that back. So you got one of two options. You either have to now budget for a monthly payment that you haven't budgeted for the last 4 years, or I guess go back to school and defer it even more, which I don't.
Ooh, I'll take a credit card out for my credit card payment. Nice.
Yes, and then pay that credit card with another credit card. No, I would say,
Don't do that. Don't do
honestly, I
that.
think you bite the bullet and you start you start paying it off, and you should have done that before. Is really my 2 cents.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it makes sense. I think the politics behind it, where the previous administration was going back and forth. As soon as like the first attempt was denied, everyone should have been realizing that was going to happen. So regardless of how you feel on student loans,
Right.
this is the society that we live in. This is the structure that we live in. It's going to happen. You should have started and been responsible enough to realize it.
Yeah. I think like we talk about this, but like don't let like ideology get in your head about how you should control your life. Don't wait for like the D or the R, the Democrat or the Republican, to save you based on whatever you believe, right? Pay your bills, and student loans suck. Like, they take forever to pay off. They're a lot of money. Some people like have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans. Don't wait for someone to save you. Save yourself. Pay it off. And I think the fact that right now they're kind of getting pushed, like they're going to start pulling this money from your tax refunds, They're going to start pulling it from your checks. Pay it off now, ASAP. Don't spend money. Like, technically, some people are like, yeah, but my interest rates for my student loans are less than what I could save on the stock market. Like, blah, blah, blah. No, pay off your student loans. Like,
What? I sincerely didn't even hear about
okay,
that.
so some people are like, I'm going to spend more money investing in the stock market because I earn more money in the stock market than I do on the cost of my interest rates for my student loans. I've heard this before. Like, it's like
Were they
YouTube,
drunk?
TikTok, BS finance.
So it's a real thing
What?
though, right? It's arbitrage. Like it makes
Yeah.
sense if your interest rate is 3%
Oh,
and CDs pay
oh.
5%, you're
Yeah.
making 2% on it. You know,
It
it is a thing.
The
but
math is there, but no one, there's like maybe 1% of the people who say that actually live that way, right?
Yeah.
They're not actually saving the money, putting the money in the right spot to make sure it covers the law. Like, that is a real thing, but people who have $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 in student loans 99% of the time aren't actually using that process. So just pay them off, you know?
I've never even heard of that. That sounds like it sounds like that what was the scheme that was going on like a few months ago where they said like the free money glitch that was happening?
Chase Bank.
Yeah,
Oh,
the Chase thing.
the
Yeah.
check fraud. Yeah.
Yeah, the check fraud. It kind of sounded like that for a moment. I was like, what is happening? You do not I thought at
I
first
mean,
I thought
like
this,
Nick said, you can do that with your debt, right? Like, you could get more debt than you have in interest payments and earn it in another way. That's for a very few amount of people who actually can live that type of life, move their money the right way, invest it in the right places. For 99% of the world, just pay off your student loans, you know?
Mhm.
I'm just kind of baffled at that.
Yeah.
That I'm sincerely, that's the first time I've heard that theory, and I kind of want to go watch a YouTube video on there. Not because I'm gonna do it. Let me be clear. I just think it's really funny.
Yeah.
Now, side note with this, I see headlines and people having their own other theories about student loans, so I wanted to hear some takes. So with the student loans, another thing I heard is, and this is part of it, is that aren't they going to like loan companies to collect on these? Is that what it is? Is that right? I thought they're like pushing like the collection piece to like
yeah, like
debt
they're gonna
collectors for this.
that's so right now the way it works is like the Department of Education, the majority of what they do deals with colleges and student loans and FAFSAs and spending. Like a lot of people think that like the Department of Education, schools my, middle schooler. No, they deal with mostly student loans. So they're trying to push it into a process, whether you like it or not, where like it's more efficient. We're not spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the US government. So they're going to use creditors to actually get that money back.
So here's the YouTube, TikTok get rich out of the way thing that I heard. And so full transparency, correct me if I'm wrong on this, okay? So the theory that they have it, and the reason is because I've never done a loan, so I don't know. But they said basically you can buy back your debt on pennies on the dollar because people do that with other loans anyway. And I'm like, so if I put 100,000 into my student loan, and then 80,000 of that goes to a debt collector, right? I can buy back my debt at pennies on the dollar. Like, what are they talking about?
I saw the thing that you're talking about. It's basically, the theory is if you go and rack up a bunch of money on like a Macy's credit card and then don't pay, it gets sold to a debt collector for pennies on the dollar. Well, the idea is you can be an LLC that purchases debt, and then you go and buy your own debt for pennies on the dollar, and then therefore it's fixed. Because the way those companies make money, they buy pennies on the dollar, and then basically anything you pay towards the debt is profit for them.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is
all
the
you have
most
to do is
ridiculous
just
thing I've
quickly
heard.
rack up 80 grand in debt and just destroy your credit rating. And awesome, I've made this huge profit.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, I was writing that down.
If something seems too good to be true, it usually is.
It didn't even sound too good to be true. It sounded stupid. Like, it made no sense. I've never done a student loan, and like it's literally what Bradley said. It was like that's exactly what I thought it was. Okay, so I've got to rack up 100 grand in debt to hopefully send they let's say also that this even Department of Education even goes this route. Let's be clear, right? Because
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like set in stone that that's happening. So let's say that they get some debt collector to purchase the debt, and then I'm just praying to God that that happens, and then I have to also get approved to be an LLC apparently, and then at that point in time, then I'm gonna buy the debt that they bought the debt from and profit. Like, what are we? Is that it? Am I like?
Well, you don't profit. You just don't pay back the original loan. Is the
Oh,
idea?
I guess I'm stupid. Anyway, let's move on. So, thanks for clearing that up. I appreciate it.
No.
Hey, Bradley, guess what?
What?
I just got a raise. What should I do with that money?
All right, you just got a raise. Let's say it's 5%. I think like generally our first idea is like, okay, throw that into your savings or 401k. My first question would be like, use that 5%, like kind of snowball that 5% down until it gets into your savings. So add whatever, let's say that 5% is, I don't know, $500 a month. Let's say like, okay, I'm going to now use $500 a month to pay off my urgent debt, credit cards in this case. And then once that urgent debt is paid off, then I'm going to go to the bad debt like a student loan or a car loan. Then I'm going to use that 5% and snowball it down to, let's say, my 401k to make sure I've matched my 401k at whatever my employer is. If I've already done that, I can add more. Maybe I can start adding to my IRA. So probably by that time, another year's gone by and you've already snowballed, like you've already snowballed through your debt and you've gone through with another raise. And hopefully maybe it's like, now I can I've matched my 401k, I've paid off my really bad debt. Now I can actually use this money in an IRA or my 401k. I think that like there's other people like that, and I'm not talking about like the snowball Dave Ramsey thing. I'm saying like snowball that 5% through your life the right way, and all of a sudden like you're going to be saving more, you're going to have your stuff paid off quicker. But I think that there's also a part that you have to readjust your budget because we have to look at inflation. Right now, inflation's good, 2.5%. Maybe you say inflation's going to be between 3 and 4%. How can I add, like, maybe I only have 1% to play with depending on your lifestyle. So, but what I would start with is instead of just being like, save that 5%, is like take 100% of that 5%, put it towards whatever you need to pay off fast. I've been thinking about this a lot, if you can't tell, because I went through it real fast.
Yeah. So I guess to kind of make it little cliff notes here, just to condense it. If I don't have debt, what am I doing?
If you don't have debt, then you're going through the process of matching your 401k. If you've already matched your 401k or whatever your employer matches, then you have extra savings for your IRA. That's what I would say is like your Roth IRA, I should say, which is I think 77,000 or 7,500. If you've already matched that, then you have 5% or whatever you need to save in any way or invest in any way you want.
Perfect. And if I have debt, worry about the debt. Focus on getting that down. Cool. Nick, I'm going to throw this last one to you. So, because, you got a child. She's 18, right? So let's say I have the child that's 18. And, I guess before 18, because we're going to save for college ahead of time, which I do.
Yeah, this could be real life application.
Absolutely. Now, I've had my ideas and I've started investing for her. But let's say I have no clue. What do you think I should do, Nick?
Yeah, so you could always do what my parents did and just be broke, and then you get FAFSA when you go and apply for college. No, I don't recommend that. No, I think there's when you're looking at that, depending on what age you start, I think there's a lot of different programs. Maybe I'm going to age myself here, but there used to be like the Gerber Grow Up Plan, which was through the Gerber Baby Food. It was like a college kind of thing. But I think there's options depending on where you live. I'm in Missouri, and so we actually did. It's a Missouri 529 plan, which is it's basically a savings investment account that you get to withdraw from, tax free, as long as you meet the requirements. And it's a simple fund. You can pick the investment options, and it just kind of slowly grows over time. And you can withdraw it for educational purposes, certain housing and different things like that. But I just think, for something like that, you're basically, and what should you invest in? It'd be very similar to what you would invest in retirement. If you have a long time to go, you can afford to be maybe a little bit more risky. Since the age of a child is lower typically than the amount of time in retirement, you probably want to be a little bit more conservative with your investments. So maybe, a mixture of like some CDs, maybe some ETFs, different things like that. But just something that's going to, I would imagine most people start thinking about that maybe around like 5 to 10 ish, when their kids 5 to 10 years old. So you got about a decade, I would imagine, of growing. And so you're not going to make a ton, I wouldn't say, over 10 years, but keeping it conservative, you should be guaranteed to, I'd say plus 50% of your investment over that time period, which should be a good chance to get your kid a good start into the college world. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I think, I mean, regardless of what that percentage is, better than the zero it sounded like you had when you were trying to get a college. But hey, Uncle Sam had your back, I guess. So, all right, cool, thanks. Now, I would say, so something that I plan on doing is there's a lot of, realistically, they're checking accounts, but they call them like savings accounts at any company. And so you think like PayPal has it, Fidelity has it, where they have like high APYs for how much money you have in there. So something that I've looked into for her and have started investing in myself is that where I'm putting in a bit into each check I have for what she needs. This I don't necessarily consider it has to be a college like fund for her, because there easily could be a chance where she doesn't go to college. She has a good career with what she's doing and she doesn't need it. But hey, that can be a good car to get her from point A to point B.
Yeah.
It can be a good like start of a house, maybe. Could be a boat.
Yeah.
What could be in the box? Could be a boat,
Yeah.
Always wanted a boat.
I think
Thanks
it's
for getting the
okay.
reference, Nick. I knew you
like,
would.
like I'm like you guys. Like I had zero money go towards college when I grew up, and like Carrie talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's like the mentality of like people who grow up in the lower classes, like we don't talk about money. But I think it's okay, like if we do help our kids out with college, like it's okay if we pay for the whole thing, if we can afford it. I wouldn't say go $100,000 into debt to pay for your kids' college, but if you have saved $100,000 and that's the cost of tuition, that's awesome. Like that's okay to do. Because I mean, there are people in their 40s still paying off their student loans. So
All right. So it looks as though our buddy Nick had some technical issues. Don't worry, we gave him grief on it already, so no need to worry on that. So we're going to wrap up today anyway. We had our final list of questions we were handling for this. So first of all, I appreciate everyone showing up today for listening to the podcast. As always, we greatly appreciate here at FF. Bradley, before we close out, what's some advice, some insights, or anything that you can find over the state of the economy or just in life in general that you want to share with everybody before we go?
Yeah, I really like the idea of like college, college because it tackles pretty much everything. It tackles credit, debt, building up credit cards, teaching our kids, getting our kids ready for it. So my thought is like, let's start when we can young with our kids and teach them, prep them for credit cards and credit and how to build their credit history, teach them how to do these things. Then let's help them with their college, let's help save for college. But like even the idea of the economy right now and is like sometimes we kind of wait for someone to bail us out. No one's coming, like you said this earlier, like people thought like with the previous administration there were going to be some student loans that were forgiven, and then it didn't happen. You're like, well, the white knight isn't coming. We got to dig ourselves out. So dig yourself out, but if possible, don't get in that hole. Like if possible, teach your kids, right? So I like the idea of college because it kind of covers everything. So don't wait for the economy, whether it's the stock market or a president or whatever. Don't wait for anyone to get you there. Just take control of it yourself.
Couldn't agree more. And I think part of that is just the simple steps, kind of what you alluded to, the simple steps you take, like starting as early as
Yeah.
possible into the little behaviors, the knowledge you can get, anything that make you successful. But even if you start when you're 40, it is never too late to be
Sure.
financially sound.
Yeah.
Don't give up just because of where you're at.
I like real
Um,
quick. I like what you
yeah,
said. Starting when you're 40. Soon we'll have a plan coming out with our Freedom Finances. We'll have like a plan, a financial plan for those who are trying to build wealth in their starting with their 50s before retirement. Then we're gonna have a
nice.
retirement plan. How do I build wealth or prep? Once I'm retired. So right now it's gonna be 50s to retirement, and then we're gonna go even later. So building a plan on that based on a lot of data, statistics, a lot of outside resources for a good plan for anyone who's over 50.
Fresh off the presses. I didn't even know that. That's awesome. Well, I'm actually excited for that. That'll be great. I know, unironically, our parents could use that, right?
Yeah.
So that would be great for them. Hopefully, they pick it up and they
Yeah.
utilize it
Yeah.
because you can have also all the tools and resources in the world, but unless you utilize them, it's not going to be helpful. So,
Sure.
um, as for what's happening with the FF podcast, so I'll leave this to you to discuss because I want to make sure you feel comfortable with whatever you want to bring to the table. But there is a potential our podcast is on break for the next up to 2 weeks. Do you want to
Yeah.
shed some light on as to why?
Yeah. So I'm gonna have my gallbladder removed, which sounds awesome.
It doesn't.
No, I don't think it's that big of a deal. From what I've seen, it could be anywhere from like a week to 3 weeks. Some people struggle more with recovery, but at the most, we're going to be out 2 weeks. Maybe just missing next week. We'll see. So, no big deal. Just a little surgery, but we're going to be out next week for sure.
I've been trying to coerce him to bring Carrie back on.
Maybe, yeah.
And to get her in on this. So definitely leave a comment or two about bringing her back on because I'm telling you, we could have a great episode with it. But
Yeah.
with that being said, Bradley, thank you. Nick, wherever you're at, thanks for your contributions today,
Bye,
air
Nick.
quotes today. We do appreciate you. So have a good day, everybody. Have a good night, morning, afternoon, evening. We appreciate everybody. Have a good one. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Adios.